History is often shaped not just by the tides of fate, but by the will and ambition of a few powerful individuals. Across the centuries, the destinies of entire nations have turned on the decisions, rivalries, and courage of remarkable leaders. The story of the Battle of Vaslui is a perfect example, a moment when the fate of a kingdom hung in the balance, determined by the clash of three extraordinary men. The Battle of Vaslui, fought in the heart of Eastern Europe, was no ordinary conflict. It was a struggle that would echo through history, remembered for its drama, its stakes, and its unlikely outcome. At the center of this epic confrontation stood three men: Stephen the Great of Moldavia, Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror of the Ottoman Empire, and Hadim Suleiman Pasha, the Sultan's most trusted general. Each brought his own vision, strengths, and ambitions to the battlefield. Stephen, a brilliant military leader and devout Christian, was beloved by his people. He was determined to defend his small, vulnerable kingdom against overwhelming odds. For Stephen, this was not just a battle for land, but a fight for the survival of his people, their faith, and their way of life. Mehmed, already famed as the Conqueror of Constantinople, was driven by a relentless desire to expand his empire. He saw Moldavia as a crucial stepping stone to further glory and dominance in the region. For Mehmed, victory at Vaslui would cement his legacy as one of history's greatest rulers. Suleiman Pasha, the Sultan's loyal and experienced general, commanded a massive Ottoman army. Confident in his numbers and resources, he marched into Moldavia expecting a swift and decisive victory, eager to fulfill his sultan's ambitions and prove his own worth as a commander. These three men, defender, conqueror, and commander, each played a vital role in the unfolding drama. Their choices, strategies, and courage would set the stage for a confrontation that would test the limits of endurance and ingenuity. Stephen fought for survival and the freedom of his people, Mehmed for imperial glory and the expansion of his empire, and Suleiman for his sultan's ambition and his own reputation as a military leader. Each man was driven by different dreams, but all were bound by the high stakes of this historic battle. Their destinies would collide on the fields of Vaslui, where courage and cunning would matter more than sheer numbers. The clash that followed would become one of the most shocking upsets of the medieval era, a true David versus Goliath story where the outcome would surprise the world and change the course of history forever. Why did the Ottomans care about Moldavia? Its location was the key. Moldavia was a gateway between the Black Sea, Poland, and Hungary, vital for controlling Eastern Europe. For years, Stephen paid tribute to the Sultan, buying time to strengthen his defenses. But when Stephen stopped paying and interfered in Ottoman affairs, Mehmed saw it as open rebellion. The Sultan needed to crush Moldavia to reassert dominance and warn other vassals. Mehmed sent a massive army to make an example of Stephen. For the Ottomans, it was about power. For Moldavians, it was about survival. The stakes could not have been higher. Stephen knew he couldn't face the Ottomans alone. He forged alliances with Hungary and Poland, both eager to keep Moldavia as a buffer against Ottoman expansion. Stephen became a vassal to King Matthias of Hungary, gaining promises of support. He also paid homage to Poland, skillfully balancing allegiances. But when the Ottoman army marched, help was limited. Hungary sent a few thousand, Poland even fewer. The grand coalition Stephen hoped for never materialized. Most of the fighting would fall to Moldavians themselves. Stephen's diplomacy bought him legitimacy and some aid, but ultimately, Moldavia's fate rested on his leadership and his people's courage. As the Ottoman army advanced, Stephen prepared to stand alone. The survival of his kingdom would depend on his own genius. The mismatch was staggering. Suleiman Pasha led up to 120,000 Ottomans, Janissaries, Sipahis, Akinjis, and Wallachian vassals. They were professional, well-equipped, and confident. Stephen's Moldavian force numbered at most 40,000, mostly peasant militia, fighting for their homes. They lacked the Ottomans' training and weapons, but knew the land and were fiercely motivated. Stephen's corps included his personal guard, boyar cavalry, and a handful of Hungarian mercenaries. His real advantage was strategy, not numbers. He knew a head-on fight meant certain defeat. Instead, he would use the terrain, weather, and cunning tactics to even the odds. The stage was set for a battle of wits as much as strength. Stephen's only hope was to choose the battlefield. He knew that facing the mighty Ottoman army head-on in open combat would be suicide. Instead, he relied on the land itself, its harsh winter, its rivers, and its forests, to become his greatest allies. Every decision he made was calculated, every move designed to tip the odds in his favor. He ordered a scorched earth policy, villages emptied, wells poisoned, supplies destroyed. The Moldavians left nothing behind that could aid the invaders. Homes were abandoned, livestock driven away, and food stores burned. The land itself became a weapon, denying the Ottomans any comfort or sustenance as they advanced. The Ottoman army, expecting easy foraging, found only desolation and bitter cold. Their long columns trudged through endless snow, their hopes of plunder and rest dashed by the emptiness around them. The biting wind and relentless hunger began to sap their strength and morale. Hunger, sickness, and frustration set in as they marched deeper into Moldavia. Supplies dwindled, and the men grew desperate. The once mighty army was now plagued by exhaustion and doubt, their spirits broken by the unforgiving winter. Stephen lured them toward a marshy, wooded valley near Vaslui, a natural bottleneck. This was no ordinary stretch of land, it was a place where movement was slow and escape nearly impossible. The valley's narrow, twisting paths forced the Ottomans to bunch together, making them vulnerable. The terrain was perfect, swampy, narrow, and surrounded by dense forest. The ground was treacherous, with icy water and mud beneath the snow. The dense woods on either side concealed Moldavian fighters, ready to strike at a moment's notice. Small Moldavian units harassed the Ottomans, then vanished, drawing them further in. These hit-and-run attacks kept the enemy on edge, never allowing them to rest or regroup. Each skirmish chipped away at their numbers and their confidence. Musicians in the woods created confusion, making Stephen's army seem larger. The echoing sounds of drums and horns bounced through the trees, amplifying the illusion of a massive force lurking in the shadows. The Ottomans grew increasingly paranoid, unsure of where the next attack would come from. Suleiman, angry and exhausted, took the bait. His pride would not allow him to retreat, and his frustration blinded him to the danger ahead. Determined to crush the resistance, he pressed forward, deeper into the trap. He ordered his army into the foggy valley, unaware he was walking into a trap. The thick mist concealed the Moldavian positions, and the narrow pass funneled his troops into a deadly corridor. The Moldavians waited, hidden and ready. Every man knew his place, every archer and swordsman prepared to strike at the perfect moment. The silence was tense, the anticipation almost unbearable. The stage was set for a devastating ambush. As dawn broke over the frozen valley, the fate of two armies, and perhaps the future of Moldavia, hung in the balance. January 10, 1475. Thick fog blanketed the valley. Ottoman troops advanced blindly, crossing a wooden bridge into the marsh. The ground was soft, horses stumbled, and the army became disorganized. Suddenly, cannons and horns erupted from the woods. Stephen signaled to attack. Arrows and cannonballs rained down from hidden Moldavian positions. The Ottomans, trapped in the valley, were caught in a deadly crossfire. The fog hid the Moldavians and sowed panic among the invaders. Suleiman, stuck at the rear, couldn't send help forward. The Ottoman army was pinned down, unable to advance or retreat. The ambush was devastating, chaos and slaughter reigned. The Ottomans tried to rally, with elite units pushing toward Stephen's center. For a moment it seemed their numbers might turn the tide, but Stephen led a dramatic cavalry charge from the flank, smashing into the Ottoman side. Inspired by their prince, Moldavian soldiers fought with renewed fury. Trumpets signaled an all-out assault. The Ottoman flank collapsed. Moldavian troops emerged from the woods, attacking the Ottoman rear. Surrounded and broken, the invaders panicked and fled. Many drowned in the marshes or were cut down by pursuing cavalry. The victory was total. The Ottoman army was annihilated. Suleiman Pasha barely escaped. The Moldavians captured treasure, weapons, and banners. Stephen's strategy had achieved the impossible. Moldavia had defeated one of the greatest armies of its age. The scale of the Ottoman defeat sent shockwaves across Europe, leaving both commoners and nobility in utter disbelief. News of the battle spread rapidly, whispered in candlelit churches and shouted in bustling town squares. For many, it seemed almost impossible that the mighty Ottoman Empire, which had swept across continents and conquered great cities, could be so decisively beaten by a small kingdom on the edge of Christendom. Over 40,000 Ottoman soldiers lay dead on the fields of Vaslui, their banners trampled and their weapons abandoned. In contrast, Moldavian losses were far fewer, a testament to Stephen's cunning tactics and the fierce determination of his people. The battlefield, once a place of terror, now stood as a silent witness to a stunning reversal of fortune. Eager to share the news, Stephen the Great dispatched messengers to the courts of Europe. He wrote to the Pope and Christian rulers, proclaiming his victory as a triumph for all of Christendom. His words carried hope and a call to unity, urging the West to recognize the threat and join in the defense of their faith. Across Europe, Stephen was hailed as Athleta Christi, the champion of Christ. Churches rang their bells in celebration, and prayers of gratitude echoed from cathedrals to humble chapels. Yet, despite the outpouring of praise, no great crusade materialized. The kingdoms of Europe, divided by their own rivalries and fears, hesitated to act. For the Ottomans, the defeat was a humiliating blow. Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror, famed for his victories and feared across the world, was furious. In his war tent, he vowed revenge, determined to restore his empire's honor and crush the defiant Moldavians. Moldavia had won a precious reprieve, but Stephen knew the threat was far from over. The shadow of the Ottoman Empire still loomed large, and the Sultan's wrath would not be easily appeased. Vigilance became the order of the day. Seizing the moment, Stephen used the time to strengthen his kingdom's defenses. Fortresses were repaired, new walls were raised, and weapons were forged in anticipation of future attacks. He called upon his people to unite, reminding them that their freedom depended on their courage and solidarity. The victory at Vaslui inspired hope not only in Moldavia but across all of Europe. In distant lands, villagers celebrated with torchlit processions, and noblemen toasted Stephen's name in grand halls. His legend grew, and his people looked to him with newfound pride. Moldavians rallied behind their leader, standing proud and defiant in the face of adversity. United by their triumph, they found strength in their shared purpose and in the promise of freedom. Yet the shadow of the Ottoman Empire still stretched across the land, a constant reminder of the dangers ahead. For now, Moldavia had survived, but the struggle was far from over. The Battle of Vaslui was not the end, but a heroic beginning, a spark that would ignite further resistance and inspire generations to come in the ongoing struggle for freedom. As the smoke cleared and survivors tended to the wounded, the story of Vaslui was already being written into history. The aftermath of the battle set the stage for the next epic chapter in the fight for Moldavia's survival and the defense of Europe. The Battle of Vaslui's legacy endures centuries later. For Romanians, it's a foundational story of courage and resistance. Stephen the Great is celebrated as a national hero, his victory a symbol of hope. Military historians study Vaslui as a masterclass in strategy and psychological warfare. The battle proved that even a small nation, united and well-led, could defy a mighty empire. It halted the Ottoman advance and inspired Europe. Stephen's legend spread, showing that the frontier of Christendom could be held. Vaslui remains a timeless David and Goliath tale, a testament to the power of leadership and the human spirit. In the foggy valley of Vaslui, a nation's legend was born.